Welcome to the Work Camping with Why Not Wonder podcast. Today we are talking with Mark from Next Trekking Adventure. He and his wife are full-time RVers, and Mark works seasonally for Xanterra, which is a national park concessionaire. And what we learned from this interview was crazy. I thought we knew a lot about what goes on in national parks, but the information he shares, you will get so many details about jobs that are available, what you have to do for those jobs,
all the behind the scenes,
the benefits of working there, all of the things that I had no idea you have access to as an employee of a national park. Just so much good information. I am so excited about this one.
Yeah, and let's not forget that they had a near-death experience as well that he shared with us. All right, so tell us your story, Mark.
Well, 3.5 years ago, I retired, and we sold our bricks and sticks. I was able to retire because of a law enforcement pension. My wife, Miss Terry, she works remotely, so that allows us to, as long as we have Starlink and we can get it Wi-Fi, we can work from anywhere. So we hit the road. You know, when I bought my RV, they issued me a YouTube channel. Well, it was during COVID, and you had lots of time to watch YouTube and follow these things. And we were originally thinking we would retire south of the border, buy another bricks and sticks in Panama, Costa Rica, do something like that. But we started watching RV travel, and I went, that might not be a bad way to go. And so we did it, and we have not regretted it. I walked away my last few years working. I was working a corporate job. I walked away from a really nice income and have never regretted it. You want to make it to 60. And at the rate I was going, I probably wasn't going to make it to 60. So it comes with its challenges, but it's been a real awesome experience. Wouldn't change anything.
So how long then have you guys been on the road?
3 years, about three and a half.
Tell us what made you start work camping.
Well, we were going through the national parks because that's what you do when you're RV traveling, right? Our first year. So we hit Glacier, Yellowstone, Zion, and kind of as we were working our way down to warmer weather for the winter, I would start talking to employees that worked in the park. Everywhere we went, they were telling us what an awesome experience it was to be working and living in the national park. And one night in Yellowstone, in the village that I'm working in now, a waitress was telling us about some of the hikes and some of the stuff she's done. And I'm kind of listening, and she waves her boyfriend over then, and he starts telling us, things we should do, how much fun they're having, and that they're going to Zion after that. And I asked him about, what's your living conditions? And they told me, well, we stay in the dorms, but there's RVs and there's, employee campground. And I went, And when they walked away from the table, we were with another couple, and I just went, I'm retired. I can do this. As it turns out, everywhere I applied, I was offered a position, but you got to kind of watch that, because the first place that wanted to hire me was Glacier. I wanted to do anything other than security, but, they read your resume and they go, oh, we know where we want you to be. And so they offered me a manager position in Glacier. They didn't have any RV spots because they had so many returning RVers. They said, well, we've got dorm rooms. And I went, yeah, that's a #no for me. So that was a no in Glacier. So when you're applying, you got to find out what they have available. The next park that offered me was the Tetons, that run the lodges there in the Tetons. And it was the same thing. I applied for, multiple different types of jobs. Again, they pigeonholed me into security, and okay, whatever. A week later, I get a call from the manager, and he goes, hey, I'm really new and I've got to apologize. Does your wife want a job? And I went, yeah, no. And he goes, you can't live in our RV park unless you work for us. Then the third place was the Yellowstone recruiter. And I said, before we even started the interview, I went, hey, I know this isn't how interviews are supposed to go, but you got to answer 2 questions. Do you have RV spaces available? And can my wife, who's not going to come work for you, live in my RV? And they said yes and yes. And so I went on with the interview, and I'm the security manager for Grant Village. Worked there 2 seasons. It's fantastic.
So you actually have enough coverage for your wife to work remotely with Starlink?
Yeah, and that's a challenge because it's a deal breaker. If she can't have Wi-Fi, you can get Verizon. Your hotspot will work in May before all the guests get there, in October when all the guests leave. When the bandwidth is taken up with guests in a national park with just maybe one or two towers, three towers, you're not going to be able to get out on a hotspot. You've got to have Starlink. So Starlink is a game changer for us.
So what do you do as the security manager?
This is going to be a shocker to everybody, but I learned after 3 interviews, and they didn't ask me any questions about guests, you babysit employees. You've got college kids from all over the world, and then it's kind of a bag of misfits too. You've got people like me who just they're at the end of their working career. There's not a lot of, and you might have saw this while you're in the area, ages between like 35 and 55. There's not a lot of people in those ages. Everybody's over 55 and older, up to 80s, and then the college up to about 35 is where most are. That you're basically there to remind your coworkers, hey, I know you got off at 11:30 tonight. The wait staff and the cooks and stuff at the restaurants, they get off late. But those housekeepers and the people that got to work days, they're getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And so you've got, kind of got to navigate this. Hey, everybody signed up to come here for a good time. I test positive for a good time. That's what I tell them. But hey, the people next to you, they got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. But yeah, for the most part, you're just you can't fire everybody. If you fire everybody, the next thing you know, you're washing dishes yourself and making beds. So that I tell my folks, hey, our job is just to keep them in play, right? Make sure nobody gets hurt. Make sure nobody drinks too much. Most people don't realize that most of these parks, if you have employees, you need a rec hall. So a lot of the bigger villages, like at Old Faithful, Lake, Gardner, they have gymnasiums, weight rooms. They have employee pubs that serve drinks and pizza and burritos at a really affordable price. For a national park. You can get a pizza for $12. So, it's a little village within a village. All the people that work in these national parks actually are living there. They're not commuting from different locations. So, and then medicals. Grant Village is almost at 8,000 feet. Elevation sickness is a thing. And so you get people that, they don't drink a lot of water because you get off the bus and then you're at a feature. And so they stop drinking water. And the cure to elevation sickness is water, right? So you get a lot of medical calls.
So Xanterra, are they also in like Glacier, and are they in all of the major national parks?
They're in a lot of them. They're the biggest vendor in national parks, but there's a lot of them. Delaware North, Vail Resorts. Now, I know there's some advantages to work camping like in a campground. You're not paying for an RV spot, or you're paying it at an extremely discounted rate. You only maybe have to work 20 hours a week. I work 40 hours a week, and if somebody calls in sick, I'm salary. So I work 70 hours, and it was, thank you, Mark, for doing that. That was super sweet of you. And that's what I got. Wages, simple guard, no experience. Last year it was $18.75. A supervisor position is $20.75 an hour, and a manager is $1,075 a month, and that a week. That includes free RV spot and food. In theory, you would never have to buy a meal if you didn't want to. So I think it's kind of a hidden little secret for RVers. If you're going to work camp, it's not a bad option to work in a national park. Now, the bad thing about that is most likely they're going to require you to work 40 hours a week, and in some cases more.
You kind of touched on the things that you enjoy about work camping. What are some of the things you don't really enjoy, if there are any?
If you're working and even though I'm security, it's the hospitality industry. And, there's people coming and paying a tremendous amount of money to stay in not such fancy digs in the, lodges. And they're paying $470 to $500, $600 a night. And these are not fancy rooms. They're pretty basic that you wouldn't pay over $100 if you were in a city, right? You get a lot of entitled guests, and if things don't go their way, sometimes you get a, you get to try to navigate that with them. So sometimes that can be obnoxious. Dealing with employee issues, again, can wear on you a little bit. The work part of it, the fact that you got to show up. You don't get free room and board and get to live in Yellowstone National Park unless you show up to work. I mean, so you got to show up, which is, for some people, it seems to be a challenge. So for some people, it may be, yeah, I don't like people. Well, if you don't like people, you probably don't want to come work in a national park, because if you're living in the dorms, you're living in a tight community, there's no Wi-Fi. So you're going to go down to the common areas, you're going to go to the employee pub. And if you're in the RV area, yeah, you can get isolated a little bit more. But
I watched some of your videos, saw some of your fishing stuff, and saw that it took you 5 hours to get into your camp spot for the season in May with all the snow.
Yeah, so depending on your position, the security side of it, we're first in, last out. Kind of. Some positions come, when the campground opens. So you're coming, like that last weekend in May, and then you're leaving in September. So it's a real short season. I'm there for 5 months. When I get there in May, there's still several feet of snow. And so, yeah, it took us like 5.5 hours to dig in. This year, though, as you become a seasoned person, everybody kind of gets to know you, and you get to know kind of the ins and outs. They brought up a little bobcat and plowed some of the snow. It didn't take us as long to get in. But here's the benefits. The little secret of getting to come in the first part of May is that there's miles and miles and miles of road that are only they're gated off and admin access, which is employees, right? People that are setting up the villages and whatever. So you have a gate code that you get to go in and out. And we saw so many bears and they're right off the road because they're using the road. So the advantages of coming in May and then leaving in October are that there's so few guests, especially in May. You have the park and a lot of things, not to yourself, but there's a heck of a lot less people there. So really cool to come early. It's our favorite time of year, actually, to come early and leave late.
We arrived end of April, left end of September, and found the same. We just absolutely, it felt like when you're there in the summer, you don't realize it when you first get there for your first year. You don't realize the beauty of being there early. Like, oh my goodness, once you're there in the summer and you see all the lines at all of the places,
Right.
You're like, oh, we can't wait for September and October. This is going to be really nice.
Yeah, so the goal is at that first part of the season, go hit all the stuff you want to,
Yep.
hit. Now you can't hike, but once you hike, only about 5-10% of the guests that come into these well, maybe Zion is a little bit different, but at least in Yellowstone, most of them, they're just hitting the thermal features, right? They're hitting those big things. So do your hikes later on in the season, but hit all the thermal features when you got the boardwalks almost to yourself in May.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Xanterra, do they offer the 4-day work week, the 40 hours in the 4 days? Do they offer that to everyone, or is that just to management?
My department, we do it to the extent that we can. We're a 24/7 operation. So if somebody calls in sick or quits or whatever the case may be, then somebody's got to fill in those spaces. They're trying to do more and more of that, because at the end of the day, nobody signs up to work in a national park for the money, right? You can make, as a waiter, you can probably make more money working someplace else. So they're coming to Yellowstone, they're coming to Zion, they're coming to Glacier for that experience. And so time off is a big deal. Currently, there's a lot of the departments still work a 5-day work week, but they're trying more and more to get more of the departments to go to 410s, to the extent that people want to do that, because having those 3 days off is a big deal.
It is. That's what she and I did when we worked in North Yellowstone, was 4 on, 3 off. Yeah. And we had that for the entire 5 months we were there. We knew our schedule every single week, and we absolutely loved that. 3 straight days in Yellowstone. Yeah. We saw things the average person just doesn't see.
Exactly. I did the math too. And so I put in as a destination Grant Village campground. To stay there in the Grant Village campground, no electricity, you have water and no sewer, right? $12,000 is what it would cost you to stay 5 months in the Grant Village campground. So not a bad gig, when you go, okay, well, add that to your job perks. And depending on the vendor, Vail Resorts and the Tetons, at least as 2 years ago, the RV spot was included. Xanterra, it depends on which park you're working in, from what I understand. But in Yellowstone, it used to be included for outside of managers, but you pay $280 for your RV site. That's full hookups.
Still not a bad deal, 280.
No, $280, yeah, and plus a wage.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, meal plans, RVers with Xanterra, you can buy meal tickets. So, the employee dining room, EDR. So the employee dining room, they're going to serve, prime rib. RVers can buy a meal ticket, $6.25. Breakfast meal tickets are, I think, $4.50, and lunch is like $5.50. Don't quote me on those, but that's gives you an idea of what you can do. If you stay in the dorms, you have to be part of a meal program, and then room plus board is like $450, something like that a month.
So if you guys are out, it's your day off, and you and Terry are out in other areas of the park, can you still use your meal plan?
You buy a meal ticket, or I just show my employee ID card as a manager, and yeah, I can go to any of the employee dining rooms in any of the villages and have a meal there. Here's another really cool thing for work campers, and specifically Yellowstone, because as you know, it's a huge park, right? It's bigger than some states, and there's multiple villages. You can get what they call a transient room, and if you want to go up, I'm in Grant Village, which is down in the south side of the park. But if I want to go up to Mammoth and spend the weekend there, I can get a employee transient room in the dorm rooms and stay in those dorm rooms. I can go to Old Faithful and stay in the dorm rooms there. And a lot of the RVers do that because you don't want to track your RV all over. But what it does is it allows you to stay up there and really explore that part of the park for 3 days and not have to drive all the way up and waste a lot of your time off driving. And especially as the season goes, a bison jam, you can be in a bison jam for 45 minutes, an hour. So there's a lot of perks working for a big vendor like Xanterra. And anytime you're big, there comes with some disadvantages of that as well. But working at any of the villages has their own unique experiences. There's nothing better than sitting on one of the decks at Old Faithful and watching the sunset or watching the sunrise. If you like people watching, Old Faithful's a great place to be.
Yeah, for sure. We went and sat on the deck there and had ice cream and watched. Yep. Yeah, it's an experience. There's nothing like Old Faithful. The inn I'm talking about.
Yeah,
sorry.
the inn is beautiful. The architecture is so cool.
Yeah.
If you're wondering how to find work camping jobs, we've created a one-of-a-kind resource that includes 35 websites you can use to find work camping jobs. You can go to whynotwander.com/jobs to request the guide.
Behind the lodge, there's a log building, and it's the gymnasium, the workout room. They do movies and dances and comedian shows. The employees, you'd be shocked as how talented some of these kids are that come to Yellowstone. Anyways, you walk in this employee only area and you just go, are you kidding me? It's a phenomenal space. It's one of the coolest spaces in the park.
That's so cool. So you can just, is it because you're security, or can any employee go and see all those?
Yeah, as long as you carry your employee ID card, you can go into employee areas like that. They're run by YSERP, which is Yellowstone Employee Co-op Recreational Entertainment, whatever. And so the YSERP group, they get paid by Delaware North, who runs the grocery stores, the Yellowstone gas stations. There's two companies, Xanterra, NPS, the National Park Service, and Yellowstone Forever stores. So 5 employers kick in and they pay any of their employees. So if you're working for any of those companies, you can enjoy any of those open to employees, the employee pub, the employee gym, the recreational areas. And Grant Village, there's an open area with some nice couches and stuff like that, and ping pong tables, foosball tables, pool tables, stuff like that. All those villages are going to have those. So if you work for any of those employees, you can come and enjoy those. It's really kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. One other question, what made you decide to go with Xanterra over Delaware North in Yellowstone?
Well, Delaware North is stores, and I didn't really want to work in retail, in the retail.
Retail?
Yeah. I was thinking campground, something like that, maybe check some more boxes for somebody like me. But it just worked out for Xanterra with the security. And at first I was kind of going, that's not really what I wanted to do. I actually applied for one of those YSERP jobs because the other thing that YSERP does, you get to plan the hikes, take the employees in a van to go do a hike. You get volleyball tournaments, cornhole tournaments, all, the karaoke contest, whatever, right? And I saw that job opening and I went, oh, that sounds cool. That's me. I could do that. I'm outgoing because I'm like, yeah, I checked this box. What I didn't check was, they don't really want somebody my age doing that. They want somebody that can really take it. And it's true. I mean, you bring in thousands of employees. I think we've got, depending on the time of season, we're like 350 Xanterra employees at Grant Village. Well, we're tiny compared to Old Faithful. You got to entertain them, especially at night. You can't say, well, you're in Yellowstone. What do you mean you got to entertain them? Well, there's only so much hiking and you're not going to be able to hike at night. It's really kind of cool, all the offerings and the things that employees get in these national parks that I don't know about you. I had no idea.
No, this with you is even opening our eyes. I thought we knew a decent amount from working there, but that's very cool.
So has anything surprised you with working for Xanterra?
The turnover rate, it blew me away. By the end of the season, we were there maybe with 35% of the people that we started the season with our first year. It's not for everybody. There's just some things like, think about this. Here's a place that gets mothballed for 9 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year. And then you're going to bring in 300 people that most likely have never made a hotel bed before. And you're going to get a hotel up and running and get people in those rooms. Well, at the beginning of the season, there's some pain points. I was a little shocked. If I showed up at the nice young person or the retired age person went, hey, I'm sorry. I know it's 9 o'clock at night, but your room's not ready. The first month,
Wow.
That's not uncommon. Flipping those rooms, it takes a little bit of practice and it's kind of an endurance thing. At the beginning of the season, they're not in condition to do that.
So is there room for all age groups? If folks watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, if they want to do this, is what you're talking about more pinpointed to a certain age group, or can anybody go and enjoy all this?
Anybody can at any age group. The reason why you don't have that middle age group is because most of those people, in those groups are, like kids, need a house, they need to be in a school, they need, but like 82, and I was the oldest person, I think, this year. Now working for MPS, one of the camp hosts that worked there, she was 92 years old and a camp host.
That's really cool.
So cool.
Yeah, 92, and stayed in an RV, for the 3 months or 3.5 months there.
That's living life. I mean, most people would resign themselves to, I need to be in a house or in a home.
In a recliner.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Well, you want to stay out of a recliner, keep doing stuff, right? I mean, the moment you sit in the recliner when you retire, it's harder and harder to get out of that recliner.
Absolutely.
So what's your number one tip for somebody out there listening to get into work camping?
So pick where you want to be and what you want to do. For a lot of retirees, that you're not doing it for the money. But if money is an issue, then here's the deal. Doing a work camping gig in a national park, you get paid. You get, in some cases, free room and board. You don't always get that when you're doing a lot of other work camping gigs. You're bartering your time versus an RV spot, or you're getting paid, $12 an hour. Well, a lot of the jobs start at 15. Security pays, I hate to admit this, so don't tell everybody. Security gets paid a little bit better than most of the other. It's a good gig. You just kind of make sure you're in something that you can physically do and, go from there.
And it sounds like Xanterra itself is a great company to work for.
My experience is positive. I certainly have stood there in the HR room during the termination process, and you interview that person, they're not going to say the same. My experience has been really, really good. I certainly would recommend them. I do recommend them, but any job, is certainly going to have its pros and cons. I think they pay well. They, for these types of positions, I think the benefits are good. I think the company gives really good perks, and because they're so big, if you want to go on a horseback ride, you want to go on, the chuck wagon feed, you get 20% off all those things. What got us hooked on fishing was I went, hey, we get 20% off the fishing guide boats out of, the marina there. We signed up, we went once, and we had, oh my goodness, that was so much fun. We went 4 times. There's a lot of those type of perks that you probably are not going to get with a lot of other companies. Wide variety of perks that you get working with Xanterra. You get 30% off of most of the Yellowstone Forever stores, the gift stores that Xanterra runs, and then once a year you get 40% off, merchandise.
Well, Xanterra sounds like a great company. It really does.
Like I said, my experience has been really, really good. They've treated me well. I feel like they care about me. I care about my people because I'm a manager.
Feeling cared about in work camping is a big deal because we've been in positions where they have not cared one bit about us, and it has made a world of difference to be in those. It's awesome that you're that kind of a manager.
I think when you're working in an environment where if you fire or somebody quits because of your bad behavior, you're only, in a lot of ways, you're penalizing yourself because guess what? You're going to be making those beds. Guess what? You're going to be working that night shift you didn't want to work.
In one of our prior podcasts, we had a campground owner on, and he said the same thing, that you have to manage those difficulties very carefully because if you just cut somebody at such a short season, you're not going to have time to replace them. So You're picking up all that slack.
Right.
Pivoting to full-time RV life, what do you love most about it?
New places. And as most RVers will always say, it's not the places we've been are really cool, but it's always the people we meet along the way. We've met a lot of really cool people and people that will be friends for life doing this RV travel thing. It's the places you go and the people you meet while you're there.
Absolutely. We would agree with that.
Do you even have a least favorite thing about full-time RV life?
Travel days. It's the anxiety about getting there, backing into your spot, what the spot's going to be like. I try to do my research, but travel days always come with a little bit of anxiety. I don't know why. I think it's in my personality, but it's breaking down, getting there that are probably my least favorite. Mainly because come Monday, we like to be stationary so Miss Terry can be on web calls and do her job.
So talking about Miss Terry and her remote work, can you speak for her a little bit? What would you say she loves about being at Yellowstone in Grant Village while you're out working? Does she enjoy the time there as well?
She likes the nomad life. I think she really enjoys being in Yellowstone because our spot this particular year, we overlooked Yellowstone Lake, and she'd have elk come visit her at her campsite and look in her windows at her. When you're working in an RV and you're not an employee, it's really hard to meet people. Everybody's down in the common area. There's no TV in there. There's no Wi-Fi. Everybody's just talking. Nobody knows anybody. So everybody's trying to get to meet people. But by the end of the season, she made lots of friends. But this last season, they were having girls' night at the RV every Wednesday night, with friends over and stuff.
So if you had to say a most challenging thing that you faced as full-time RVers, what would that be?
We had a horrible start to our full-time RV travel. 5 weeks in, we were at one of those RV parks that the units are parked so close. You feel like, yeah, I can touch them. Well, the guy next to us, he was a construction worker that traveled. Well, he's in a toy hauler, 60 gallons of gas, left 3 heaters on, and his RV went up in flames. And 5 weeks into our RV travel, we lost everything. So at 4:30 in the morning, Terry woke me up to snap, crackle, pop, and the moment I looked out, and the flames were shooting out of like maybe his heater area, refrigerator area on the side of his thing. It was so close to RV. I knew that, that it was going to be like a domino effect down the road. So in my shorts and t-shirt at like 42 degrees and bare feet, I ran up and down the road banging on RVs, waking people up to get them out of their RVs. By the time I came back, the siding was melting off of our RV, and a guy that I woke up goes, "Hey, dude, is that your truck?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Save your truck, man." I had to run in between the two RVs, my bare feet and sleeping shorts. And I knew my keys were hanging right there at the stairs. And I go, "Oh, this is going to hurt," when I popped the door open and burnt my fingers and grabbed my truck keys and got my truck out of there. But the next day, we were going to park our RV for 3 months. And so we had all our camera gear, drones, suitcases, $1,000 cash. We were going for Puerto Rico for 3 months. I had them all right there, but right by the door, because in the morning we were going to load the truck and go. And I don't regret my decision to run down the road saving people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, God dang, it would take me a second to throw. We had full-time insurance, but it's the amount of coverage for contents just covered probably my laptop, drone, computer gear, cameras that I had packed, so the rest of the stuff. And you think about this, when you downsize, you sell everything, you have just your favorites. We don't have a storage unit. All my police memorabilia, all that type of stuff gone.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry you guys lost everything. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That is horrible.
So yeah, we were like, are we cut out for this, man? Is somebody trying to tell us something like, hey, this is a bad idea? So now we're hyper vigilant about fire safety in our RV. We have little fire extinguisher devices that are activated by heat. I've got them in the underbelly at strategic locations in my RV. Supersized the fire extinguisher. It was a little rough start, but that was definitely the hardest part of full-time travel.
Yeah, for sure.
So was Terry, while you were out saving people, was she able to gather anything?
No, she ran out too.
Was he in there?
No, he was working nights, and so he had left for the night.
Wow.
So how many RVs total were lost?
5.
Wow.
Yeah, and the fire department got there fairly quick.
Lessons learned there. Number one, it's been on my list for months to get back with our insurance, our full-time insurance. I've had it listed to, I don't even know what it's called with insurance, but where you can itemize out your items and pay extra for that for all of our equipment. So that was I'm thankful that you shared that. I'm sorry that you lost everything, but I'm thankful that you shared the lesson. And then also just upping your game on fire safety.
Yeah, and there's some simple things that, if hindsight, we'd have put our documents in a fireproof safe. We do now. You can get document holders that are also fire resistant document holders. But one of the really cool things that you can get them online. There's fire blankets that you can, hold up, wrap up, or throw over a kitchen fire. So you can use it as a protectant, but you can also use it to smother fires. And now we have 2 of those up in our sleeping area, one for each of us if we need to get the heck out of our RV.
Have you guys done a video on your channel about all this?
Yeah, I've done a few. I've done a few shorts, and I did a long on fire safety and what we're doing.
I'm going to totally go to those.
Yeah, so this is a good segue. Tell us about Next Trekking Adventure, a little bit about your channel.
So Next Trekking Adventure, it's kind of a mixed bag of RV, work camping, jumping out of the RV and going to, we like tropical, warm places. And so we're kind of a hybrid that way, but we're having fun doing it.
Very cool. So what would your number one tip be for somebody looking to get into full-time RV life?
Double your budget. You think, I'll do 1,000 trails, I'll do this, I'll do that. Well, double your budget. It just seems like it costs us a lot more than what we anticipated.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so nice to talk to you.
Well, thank you. Good talking to you guys and meeting you guys.
Tell us where we can find you on social media.
So we're Next Trekking Adventure, and that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and a little bit on TikTok. I just started a channel, Next Fishing Adventure. So our big thing is Next Trekking Adventure.
So we will put all those links below so that you guys can go follow Next Trekking. And thank you again so much for your time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Work Camping with Why Not Wander podcast.
You can see today's show notes at whynotwander.com/podcast. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive regular updates from us, along with special discounts at whynotwander.com/updates.